Rialto wasn't very close, and Li Jiang, we didn't really play much ball comp, which is mostly what we want to focus on, like Ivy said. So Blizzard is just kind of there by process of elimination.
Okay, okay. And last question: when you scrimmed, like, what was the goal of the scrim? Were you just trying to win as many maps as possible, or was there kind of a practice goal that you had in this session?
I think it was just play and win as many maps as possible. We took a bit of a break, and this was like our first game back, or first few games back. So it was just kind of like play as a team, play together.
Mm-hmm. All right, perfect. Then, if you have no more other questions about me or anything else, then I would just say we jump right in and take a look into the game and so.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Then obviously playing the red team, right? Yeah, should be.
Yep.
Okay, then before we start watching or going into this, just to be on the same page, can somebody just tell me a little bit quick in your thoughts and in your words, basically how this composition works, right? Like we obviously pick the 6 heroes to win fights, and in some way or another we try to get kills. How do we do this?
Uh,
Well, for me, I kind of think just like we want to eventually set up our Briggs in and like to like get angles and then have like an ideal fight would be set up, take space, and then at the same time follow up with chase your ball and like us walking or spamming out angles.
or
Okay.
we start off spamming, and then once they're down resources, we sip and engage, and then push off that.
So we spam first and then you want to engage, okay. Anybody else wants to add something or?
Um,
Control lanes.
Okay. Okay. Then, I mean, obviously, yeah, so sounds all fine. Like, it's just for me important that we obviously understand, right? That we have these two main win conditions with this composition: the spam option and the dive option, right? You just mentioned that we want to go for spamming first and diving second. I mean, sure, sounds good. I don't really mind as long as we have the understanding that depending on what strategy we go for, right, we have different jobs and different kind of ideas that we want to go for. Does it make sense?
yeah.
Yeah. So if we go for spamming, you mentioned over like Brick Sand that they want to take a different angle. What do the others do? For example, let's say the Widow and Sigma and so on. Like, what are they doing? And if we are going for the spam strategy and try to establish this.
Well, the Sigma should be kind of guiding the core, which would be um, Widow Brigzen to like set them up, and then once they're set up, kind of just like helping spam slash like carrying them, like enabling them.
Okay. Is the Widow and the Sand then on the same angle? Or Widow's Brick Sand?
Um, not I, not ideally, I guess, because we want multiple angles. Like if
Okay.
I like,
Why sorry, real quick, like why do we want multiple angles even? What's the advantage of having
Great.
multiple angles?
It creates more pressure on the enemy team. They can't just play a single position and LS all of us. Or like shield all of us at once, for example, or other stuff like that.
Yeah, like sure, like it's completely right. Like just maybe say in different words what you mentioned. Like if we are able to have different angles on enemy position, we force out cooldowns quicker. Right? Like imagine they have a Sigma. Obviously, if we shoot them from one place, the Sigma will put a shield. Then the shield will just get destroyed. He uses E ability, and so on. Right? And obviously have not much else. If we shoot them from two different sides, what will happen is he has to use shield against this one side, and immediately at the same time, he also has to use this other ability if he wants to maintain this position or he wants to go away. So creating different angles has not much to do with the damage output. Like doesn't matter if there are like 6 bastions or so, he will still use shield and then eat first. It has to do something with like we obviously have killing pressure, aka Widow and Sen. where he has to do something against it, or obviously he might die, or like obviously right, like it might ascend, maybe dies from them, and this is kind of the big advantage of taking angles that we want to create. So yeah, basically, right, if we play for the spam strategy, I mean, we are obviously, I guess, far familiar with the idea. Just to remind everybody, like the first thing we always want to do is obviously create a map control. Then we want to take different angles. Different angles help us to force cooldowns. And if we obviously stay with the spam, right, then this gets us to kills. Because either they have to take this space, like they have to go away from the space, right? They have to give the space up. Then we obviously can just take it. At some point we are at a point. So, I mean, sure, they can still give a point and then we just win the game. Or obviously what was way more likely is that they will fight for it. And if we forced enough cooldowns away, we will kill. Like there's no engagement in between. This is an important thing. So, and obviously if we talk about this angles, especially with this composition that we have right now, I think our goal should be, like our overall goal for the whole strategy of 6 players should be that we have multiple angles with obviously the 2 characters who are the most effective, aka the Sen and the Widow. Does it make sense?
We swapped to Ash off Widow.
Okay, yeah, Ash or Widow,
Yeah.
obviously. Perfect.
Makes sense.
Okay, great. Right, and obviously, then sure, like how you sort Brig and Sigma to this, like to be honest, I don't really mind. Like the important thing for me is just that we're on the same page here. That if we're playing at any point on the spam for the spam strategy, and this is our goal as a team, then obviously we have this all 6 as a goal. So this should be the thing we want to get out of this.
All right.
With one more question about the spamming thing is, what is the Brig and the Tracer and the Ball doing? We're trying to
Clearing
spam.
lanes, setting up dives, and then looking for brawls late fight or during the engage.
Yeah, everybody's on the same page. Anybody has a different opinion?
You said Brig, Tracer, and
So,
Ball, or just Ball?
no, the Ball and Tracer, just the Ball Tracer.
And we said, what did we say? We said clearing lanes,
Harass,
Clearing lanes,
clear
looking for dives.
lanes.
marking maybe their Ball Tracer, like protecting
Mhm.
them, protecting us from them engaging onto us. Getting ready for like an engage like with the full team. Maybe once we find some sort of trigger, be it a pick or an ability cooldown.
Yeah. I'm completely fine with all what you guys said.
Mhm.
Other than the getting ready part, or like what you mentioned with the dive, because like I obviously, and I don't want to be like super like detailed here on this, because at the end of the day, it's a combination of both. But I think we should have. It's important, and we can also obviously go over this in the game in a second, and that we have the right priorities. When we go for the spamming idea, and we say, hey, right now our goal is just to make space for us to get set up our Widow and Zenyatta. We should not look for any dive opportunities. In a sense of, well, like diving for us means basically, right, like we look for engage and try to burst somebody down. We should Ball Tracer has the same job as everybody else, helping our Set and Widow get into position. If this means I don't know, harassing the enemy Ash or doing anything aggressive there, sure. But obviously this, in my opinion, is just not a dive, because it's just more like a distraction, right? Like dive, in my opinion, is always having to do with something like I try to kill. So definitely, I would say the most important, or like priority number 1, most likely, is to obviously create a space. And I mean, where do we need to create space? Obviously, where our stand or wherever wants to go. And this normally evolves, especially if we have this mirror matchup here, around taking mark the tracer. Mark the tracer and mark the ball. So basically looking for the mirror matchups. And then sure, like in some scenarios we can also like, I don't know, like engage or like soft engage or like distract them, the Ash and so on. And then if there's, let's say, a different matchup where we play against full brawl, then we just take angles. So this here distract. And this, then obviously we can also take our own angles against things where our backline has no pressure. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, great. And then just real quick, that we're also on the same page here. The dive thing, right? We already talked about it. Obviously, dive all about burst damage. So ball, like it's basically all about the tracer in this case, or most of it at least, because she's obviously the character that has the most reliant burst damage in our team. And obviously, don't have to go over this because it's clear. Ball obviously engages with the tracer, making space for this. What are the other 4 doing? to help our dive?
Positioning ourselves to enable that dive. So, for example, maybe like wherever we decide to dive, we have our Brigzen able to see it, and then we also have our Sigma and Widow like have angles on that area.
Yeah.
Also, like packing and harmoning our dive members so they can take those duels and take those angles.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely want to help basically our dive people to actually get in position there, right? Like as we know, like dive has this 3 stages, or I like to just call it 3 stages. We have the scouting, where we pick out like who and where we want to dive, like who we want to dive and where. So then we have a position basically. From this on, we have a staging process that we try to get in a position where we're comfortable diving there. Obviously, especially here, the backline is important for us to help clearing this path. Like we contribute resources obviously differently compared to a spam. And the last thing is obviously the engagement, the dive itself, where the timing is super important. And yeah, I don't want to we can, because I don't know where you're at right now, so we'll just rush through this. So we're on the same page. Definitely send, obviously, most important thing is LOS on the dive target, so we can Discord orb. I mean, Break and Sigma will both most likely, when the actual dive happens, support the send so he can do his job, aka Discording. And Widow and Ash is a bit of a free card, because the way we can whatever we can do to help our dive obviously works. The only important thing I want to point out here is when we talk about the dive, right? Like we need to make sure that our Widow and our backline is more stacked together, compared to the spam, where obviously the whole goal is that we make sure our Widow or Ash and the Sen are being apart. Why do you think this is the case?
Because since our dive members are staying up for the dive, they can't clear those angles as easily, or they can't spend their time clearing those angles. They have to focus on the target we're diving.
Exactly. So basically, and basically most likely then these will be for free. So if we want to, like if we split up still, then we take a risk. Sometimes can be a calculated risk, but we just understand, hey, there's a risk. Nobody will save me as an Ash. Nobody will actually care about our Ash, or like our Widow, because our whole goal is about killing somebody quickly, and then Ash is really, or Widow is really low in our priority list when it comes to helping people. It will mostly be the ball tracer. Okay, great. Any questions about this, or are we on the same page, generally speaking, when we talk about this theory of the composition?
Yeah. I think we're on the
Yes.
same page.
Yeah, great, perfect. Then just take a look on how you actually execute it, and then we can see if there's something we can point out more. I always like to just play over the whole fight, and then basically ask you first, what do you think is something you played you did really well, and what is something maybe you guys can improve on? Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Then let's watch it. All right, maybe so far, so we don't have to so much to remember. Yeah, any opinions? Anything that you say? Yeah, this was really well.
Do you remember? Do we remember why Hattori went Widow here?
No, because I think he was like in spawn and forgot to go to Ash. I'm pretty sure that's all. Pretty sure he just forgot to swap to the right hero.
Unfortunate.
Okay. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
When we're poking at them here and trying to force them off high ground, Hattori, one, he's late, but also he's stacking on the exact same angle we are.
Yeah. All right. You're obviously same angle, right? Like at this point, it's basically just who has more damage, right? Because we shoot them, they shoot us. I mean, okay, whoever wins this there, I guess can stay. So yeah, having this angle and this angle, right, will maybe force them to use more cooldowns quicker, or even threatens them, and then obviously this provokes them earlier to go back down than if we all stand from there. Yeah, but I mean, we still completely solved this, right? I mean, the ball tracer were basically AFK, did really not much in this kind of whole poking systems, and us coming from this basically had the same effect, or like the ball kind of threatening from a different area, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, there's not much to talk about. Of course, can be maybe more clean on, but I don't really mind. And if you don't want to talk more about it, then I guess we can also skip this. So what about this kind of next phase here? Anything you say, yeah, this was really well done, or something where you said this could be better?
The rotation was kind of scuffed, but we didn't get punished for it.
Why was the rotation scuffed, in your opinion?
Not stacked. Oh, we're pretty stacked, I'd say. I mean, our Widow is kind of behind,
yeah.
but
yeah.
I think.
I mean, go ahead. Why? Who said the rotation was scuffed?
Oh, I did, and
You
I
did?
was mostly talking about Tori lagging behind. But I
Okay.
mean, it wasn't a massive mistake, and we didn't get punished for it.
Okay. I think I obviously right. Like, sure, you didn't get punished, so completely agree with this. But if we want to talk a little bit of the hypothetical here, what could we do better maybe next time, other than just being stacked? Maybe something else we can do better to make this rotation more like clear, or at least reduce the risk. Because we all agree, right? This is a rotation where imagine the ball tracers now jump in, they're peeking out here. We will maybe not die immediately, but we will be in a rough position. So, is there something we can maybe do to avoid this risk?
Maybe move all at once, in addition to stacking.
I mean, yeah, sure. I would, to be honest, do this a little bit together. That right, that we obviously all move together there and stack that. Widow is not lagging behind, so I agree.
Maybe to like
Just look behind us and like wait for Tori, I guess.
Yeah, okay, sure. I mean, this is always the same thing of like we want to stack. I mean, definitely, right? I don't have to tell. I mean, yeah. Don't have to tell you how to get more stacked, right? I think you're playing enough Overwatch to say like, yeah, sure, there are methods to make sure that we're all together. So we agree on this. This is something, or like F for now, right? This is nothing we don't want. But yeah, I think there's something like other than being stacked that would reduce the risk, because it doesn't really matter for me as much. Like, of course, right? If we are like all for here, they can still engage in us. I'm not saying it's
maybe
immediately death, but yeah.
Maybe putting pressure on them, like making sure that
Mm-hmm.
they aren't given an opportunity to engage.
Yeah, this was really good. Yeah, keep going.
Be it like a soft roll through, or maybe like just I'm not sure what else really. Maybe Sigma walks in more or something.
For example, like the main point is how I like to phrase it. That's why I also kind of was a little bit more critical when it came to the like when we talked about the strategy. It is really, really important that we see each other like as a team, especially in this kind of. I have a lot of like I spoke with a lot of teams where for them maybe not they really didn't break it out, but in their minds this was kind of always like two separate groups. There's a back group and the front line kind of, or however you want to think about it. And in my opinion, I think this is not good for the whole team. We should think about us as like we are like one team and we want to do like one thing. So on a big picture level, it's obviously a strategy level. Hey, what do we want to go for? A spam strategy or for a dive strategy? Sure, and then we have different jobs. But it's the same for the rotation that we take. And right now we try to make a rotation from A to B. So all 6 members, like this is our. If we don't get this rotation, nobody cares if my ball and tracer are in a perfect position to dive, because we will die here. So we should really make sure that we get this kind of staging process that we have kind of right now done as a team, and we see this more as a team movement from all 6 members. You know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Then basically, right? Like, if we want to make this this movement, we say like we just, as you mentioned already, we try either to distract them, but to reduce the risk as much as possible. And if this is, I don't know, if you want to roll through, dive in, whatever, like it's about. I don't really care about the mechanics, because I mean, I guess our ball player knows best how he can do it, to also be ready then for the dive. So basically, best case, not using the shield in any way. But yeah, like we want to obviously like do it as much as possible. Or the tracer maybe like right like distract him in this moment. So we make a coordinated rotation. Because obviously it can be called like, hey, let's rotate 3 to 1 and let's do this.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Just have
Okay.
everyone doing something.
Yeah. Like definitely doesn't have to be like the greatest amount, especially if we expect him to dive, right? I mean, we saw already what happened. So like imagine we try to go for an engagement. So of course, as a ball, I don't want to lose like so much HP. I don't want to lose like have to use my shield or something like this. So obviously, maybe like just a roll through, like at least some, even just some shooting them from here, right, and making them look around for 1 second. So when we can make the rotation, this like buys us maybe half a second, which is maybe at the end then really important. And obviously, the more like if we know that the team is like really looking for this engagement, or like I don't know, maybe we just also get punished more often. Obviously, then the more resources we have to invest there, right? It's just experience. The more we play and so on, the more we notice like, hey, this is something really of a kill zone there. Maybe the more resources we actually want to invest. Okay, great. Then yeah, I'll just continue. Yeah, and obviously we kept watching this and so on the whole dive. Anything that you guys want to say about this? Like also good things you can also say.
I am bad at the video game.
Okay.
I think we did a good job of getting into the red building, but maybe it wasn't so clear what our plan was after we entered mines. Like, because usually we like enter and then it's kind of like more fluid and we don't really know what's the next step. So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Like especially for me, obviously I don't know you as a team, but why do you guys think this is this looks like or sounds like a more common thing that sometimes you do things and then you don't know the follow up afterwards? Or am I like imagining it too much?
No, I think
Or
it's sort of right. Like I think we kind of like entered the building and maybe we just didn't have like a clear picture of like, okay, where we're gonna go next, or are we gonna like try to stabilize, stack together, or like like absorb their dive or get ready to start poking them.
Hmm. Okay.
Because sorry,
Yeah.
because we see Mew try to like repel their dive. So I think if all 3 of us like in mines play for that, I think that probably lends itself to turning out better for us. Because I think, and I may be wrong, I haven't viewed this fight yet, but I think I know I personally was like spamming main, and I'm not sure if our Zen or Widow was spamming main, but it looks like Mew tried to like absorb the dive, kind of help us defend, and I think it was just kind of like 1 defending, 3 spamming.
Before we go into execution, like how we did this, right? Like on a macro level, I want to talk like about this like problem of we don't really know what to do, kind of like we don't have a coherent plan. How can we fix those things?
Talking about it.
Talking about maps more, like in between maps or during VOD reviews, or in between rounds. I mean,
Even just saying what the plan is before we start the rotation, or before as we're walking up, like what, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like I think, like I mean, sure, definitely, right? Like what views always help to get like more on this aligned with all like different thoughts and exchanging arguments and so on about our different strategies. So that's definitely great. But I think for this kind of scenarios, it's obviously super important that we talk about it like from a fight to fight basis. Like again, like I'm obviously right. I haven't worked with you, and I also don't know how you interact in scrims and so on. But obviously, with like a fight plan for every fight happens here, basically, right before we even engage. Like we should have a plan. I mean, yeah, just normal fight plan, like either it's with ultimates or without, to know okay, like how we want to approach this. And of course, we can then react on stuff and so on. But for example, at least our goal should be, and our mind should be, hey, like we want to like poke them out, for example, like whatever, and we get a position first for our backline could be the plan, and then we dive in, for example, right? This could be our general plan. So that means okay, like that means at the end of the day we get a kill through the dive. That's kind of what we try to accomplish. And obviously we have to step for making the rotations on where everybody helps and so on. But if we already know, hey, our goal is to make this dive, I mean, then everybody can also everybody knows kind of what their job is. For example, if I know as a Widow player right now that our main goal is to make a successful dive to their backline, and we even maybe scout it on the point here, then I know that I will not get any help for taking a different angle or something like this. So instinctively, of course, I immediately go to with my team, right? I don't even make this. Imagine like if we go for spam, then I could imagine like the Widow goes here and the ball tries to help her, right? Like I think this is like for me, it's like a middle of a fundamental thing that we know what we are trying to do. Like, why do we even make this rotation? Right? This rotation should be like the second thing we talk about. First, we talk about the plan, what you try to do, and then we can talk about like how we want to do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if this like helps or like fixes everything because again, like
Well,
don't
our,
really
our
know
fight
like
plans are generally quite inconsistent in terms of when we do them.
yeah. Okay. So like how I'm just asking myself how much we want to go into this topic. Do we want to just like ignore this a little bit and keep talking about kind of the execution of like how we can do different plans, or do we want to maybe like make a quick detour into like the communication? Maybe I can show you an example. Is it something I don't know where you basically what would benefit you the most right now?
I feel as though it could be good to see an example. Like I don't want to like go into like super deep commit a lot of most of the time to this one problem, because like I think we have more other problems like I said before. But I think it could be beneficial to like maybe view like an example perhaps.
Okay. Looking for something. Do you others have an opinion about this?
No, I support Ivy's perspective.
Okay. Then let's take a look at an example before this. Whenever I watched it. Then let's talk about really quick, like the outside the fight communication, which is obviously an important thing here where the plan is involved. Let's imagine like we are winning a fight. What is the first thing we talk about after we won a fight?
I'll check.
Ult tracking, exactly. Do we have an ult tracker or like somebody who is responsible for the ult tracking? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I handle the ult checking.
Okay, so okay, perfect. What's the next thing we talk about?
Fight plan. Maybe or like where we're gonna go next. Like
yeah.
Like
What do the others say? Like we have is it fight plan or where do we go next?
team.
I would say you fight plan, like say what you want to do, and then use the positions afterwards around that, like more specific positions.
Yeah, I mean, completely right. Because how will you know what you do next or where you go if you don't really know what you want to accomplish, right? Then we are coming to the same situation right here, where we make this rotation and then we're like, okay, what now? You know,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, robbing a bank and having $2 million, but then you don't really know what to do with it. Like it's okay, like maybe you should think about this first before you commit a crime. I don't know. So yeah, definitely the plan is first. First, we need to do like what we want to do, and maybe we quick like what does the plan include? Like what needs to be in a plan that it is a good plan?
Alts and win cons.
What's our ult plan? Yeah. What is it we're like looking for? Are we gonna like play to get space? Are we gonna play for like an engage? Are we gonna play for cart maybe? So like, what is our goal?
Yeah, I definitely put this. I would put this in the what basically. Like, what do we want to do? This can obviously mean,
I see.
especially like ultimates. Like, what do we want to use, right, or something like this, or like cooldowns or something like this. So I would say the what is important. Yeah.
I would say then when and where. So like, where on the map is it gonna be, and like, what is gonna be like our trigger? Like, where is it gonna be? Like, is it gonna be like one that Siggy's like an ability or something? You know, like.
Yep. Exactly. Like the when and the where are the other two things. Do we have somebody who is responsible for fight planning?
It's sort of me and Manway. But as a team, we usually do it.
Okay. Like to be honest, I personally think, and just I mean, every team at the end of the day does it differently, right? I just give you kind of my perspective, and I think it's best if we have one who is like responsible for fight planning, What I mean with responsible for fight planning doesn't mean that you make all the decisions. It means like two things. Number one, bring it up. You bring up the topic. You basically ask the team like, "Hey, what do we do next fight?" Obviously, best case scenario, you have already like an idea, but you don't have to. You can also just like bring this topic up. That's just important that we talk about it. And the second thing that you need to do is you make a decision. If our Sen says let's do this, our Brick says something else, then it's up to this person here. We clarified before. That's why it's important that it's only one that makes a decision. Because at the end of the day, especially in Overwatch, right, we don't have so much time to make this whole communication process. It is more important that we do one thing together as six than doing, I don't know, 3 players do a good, quote unquote, good thing, and the other 3 players do a bad thing. Then none of this will work.
Mhm.
So it has nothing to do with the quality, by the way. Like if right, let's say I don't know, we
Mhm.
want to rally in, and the other plan is we jump on a bridge. If our fight plan says we jump on a bridge, I mean, in theory, you should follow this, right? Even though it's a bad example right now, but I hope you get what I
Yeah.
want to say. with
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Just play
And the
as
same thing,
6
by the way.
players.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing also here with ult tracking, even though it's not so relevant most of the time, but the same thing. Like, in my opinion, at least the way I view it, Mew doesn't have to make the full ult tracking all the time. He just needs to bring up the topic, and best case, he also obviously knows some ultimates, and he makes decisions if we don't know if they have graph or not, for example.
Mhm.
Like the thing is, why I phrase it, why I like to phrase it this way, is I want to encourage again the same thing as I did before, that we are a team of 6 players. And just because we have one fight plan doesn't mean that I have to be quiet and I have to like let him make a plan all the time. Right? Like, because at some point I see as a break player, say maybe see different opportunities for my ready usage than our Sigma, because he's just playing Sigma, I'm playing brick.
Right.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I just want to bring up that I think one of the small problems we usually have is like we make plans and then people change the plans, and then it ends up like throwing us into like disarray.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to bring
Yeah,
that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's great like that you brought it up, and if this is something that you already identified as a problem, right? I mean, obviously, then the step what we are doing here right now in this review is kind of over. Then the next step is basically improving it, right? Like saying, hey, like I mean, it's a pretty easy thing to improve there. Say, hey, we just follow one plan that we can say, okay, the next scrim, our scrim goal is to fix this problem, aka we want to have one plan. It doesn't matter who does it. At the end, I will decide, right? Like Mew can make the plan, Ivy can make a plan, Grim can make a plan. Doesn't matter. But Ivy will decide if we have two. If we obviously have one, then he doesn't need to say yes at the end, right? Like if Grim makes a plan and there's no counter plan or whatever, then okay, obviously we do it. There's not Ivy needs to say, oh yes, I allow it. You know, it's not like that.
I permit you to follow your plan.
Exactly. So if we already have kind of identified this as a problem, then I would just encourage you to say, hey, next scrim, for example, we write it down. This scrim goal is like making sure we always have one plan and we also actually follow it. Okay, just to not like to also have some time for the other things. I want to like speed this up a little bit. I will just say some things. If they don't make sense, feel free to just jump in.
Right.
I just want to like make sure that we also get some other things. We can obviously also maybe spend more time on the communication. But one other thing is important, in my opinion, is when we make the plan. This what is something which is basically all of this. Yeah, there's like right, like we make the plan, we talk about what, and Ivy decides and so on. But the where and when is something that has nothing to do with Ivy, because when we talk about, let's say, we want to graph dragon, well, it's a different example because Ivy is off tank. Let's say nanoblade. We want to nanoblade. Now, obviously, the saying like the when and where we want to nanoblade. I mean, who does the ultimate? The Genji. So the Genji knows way better where and when he wants to nanoblade, because I mean he did it like 20 times or like 1,000 times compared to our off tank, who most likely hasn't played Genji as often, right? So the when and where should always get said from the person who actually uses the ultimate. Like if Ivy now says, hey, we want to go in with like next fight we go in with mines and I don't know, mines and pulse bomb, then it's up to the ball to say where and when he use it. Obviously only if this is additional information where he needs us to do something. Like maybe mines is something where he doesn't need to doesn't need any help, then obviously he doesn't also need to communicate it as clearly. But that's the idea behind it.
Okay.
Then afterwards, what's the next thing we will talk about?
After the plan.
After the plan, yeah.
Timing, or like the actual execution of the plan.
Maybe
It's a little bit here in the when.
staging.
It's like position staging, yeah.
Yeah, like I would just call it setup. Just different word, but
Right.
makes it's the same. Definitely like, and this also includes like the rotations, right? Do we want to go left side? Do we want to go right side? And so on.
So the plan is like, hey, we're going to set up on like tank, for example, whereas like the setup is us actually walking to tank and getting position for that kill box.
Yeah, like exactly, like yeah, exactly. For example, like let's imagine like Blizzard or the Busan mecha base, right, with these 2 doors here. Let's say we make now the plan, and the plan is we want to grab dragon, and our Zaya says, okay, I will grab when, I don't know, after we force out Diva defense matrix, I will try to grab at the choke. Okay, this is the plan, right? We know we grab dragon, we know that we wait for the Diva defense matrix, and we know where we do it. So now comes the setup, and the setup would then be, okay, you know what, I will position myself here as a Zaya, and maybe the May will say, hey, I will position myself here, and the Baptiste, I don't know, I will position myself here, Ryan here, and so on. Obviously, the obvious positions we don't have to say, but especially things like the May maybe can say, hey, I will split up from the team so I can make an easy wall here. This is like something that is not standard, which maybe should point it out to the team so we're all aware of this, because obviously it's something we will play around later on. Which is in this case, right, doesn't even mean it has something to do with the plan. It's just some extra kind of things. What's the next thing we want to talk about?
Scouting.
Yeah, exactly. Scouting, right? Because we need to know then afterwards, are they actually coming this way or are they going this way? And depending on this, we can maybe also like change our setup again, because if we know they go for the right side, I mean, then we have to move this whole thing here to the right. So, yeah. And obviously, depending on attacking or defending, like if we attack, we maybe want to scout first where they are before we talk about which rotation we do. But yeah. And then the last thing is basically just the execution, where we execute the plan, and then hopefully we keep winning and we start snowballing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Everybody's fine with this kind of communication setup?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, great. Then let's take a quick look at an example. And then we can maybe also look at other fights. I have to change the screen so we can hear it. This is a little bit older, so don't look at the comps or something like this. But I think the communication is still quite good. Okay, and what I want you to focus on right now when you listen to this, we listen to the blue team, is if you can hear out the different stages or different kind of points that we just marked in our communication cycle. Okay?
Right.
All right, then let's listen to it.
Genji now. Adam, call if you need help, right?
They have Bob, Blade, Rally, Flux.
Can we just hold close and flux Blade into them like really fast before they even can do anything?
I think we're better for Flux Rally.
Keep snap. Yeah, flux Rally, whatever, just any combo.
Okay, we push under them with Rally then.
Yeah, push a payload. You
Holding the stairs
Like,
to where they're coming.
I think the bomb. Go now.
No, obviously we execute the thing. Yeah, everybody could hear the different things out of this
Yeah.
example? Yeah. Just so they go to maybe some important things here, like obviously let's start the goal tracking.
Blade, Rally, Flux.
In this case, obviously just one do it, so my best case, but I mean, it doesn't have to be. Again, like it's a team effort. If somebody can do it, sure, but it's a team effort at the end. Then the planning, what we are now right now, there it's really important to say like the first one who actually talks is the Genji player, and afterwards comes the Orisa, and the team decided as their team that the Orisa is kind of their IGL, or their kind of the one who has the
Concept.
crown. Yeah, exactly. He's the one who's responsibility of making the plan. And if we listen to it, it's basically Genji just having a plan first.
We just hold close and flux Blade into them like really fast before they even can do anything.
I think we're better for Flux Rally.
And then basically the IGL or the in-game leader, or however you want to call it, shot caller, cancels his plan, right? And then immediately Basically, because we already agreed before the fight even happens, or before the match happens, that Orisa in this case is the one who's responsible for this. Basically, follow his plan, and there's no discussion. There should be no like, oh, but this is really better. I mean, this is something for what reviews or like after the matches, between the matches. That in this situation, maybe I don't know, Fluxblade is better. We can argue about this. But in this case, in this moment, we have to follow kind of the decision that was made. So.
Yeah, Flux ready, whatever, just
Yeah.
any combo.
Yeah, of course we do it now. The Flux ready, like not any combo. So and now we have the plan, right? And we have the plan of the what we do. But now it's the question of the where and when. And the thing is, like we have obviously Flux rally. In this case, obviously, I mean the team is not new, so they obviously play together for a while. And the Flux maybe is something the Sigma doesn't have to say it because he knows we know exactly how it works, or like there's also nothing we can like he needs from us to make his ultimate, so he says nothing. But we hear about the rally.
Okay, we push under them with rally then.
Yeah, push it.
Yeah. Like, this is the where and the when right now. We ask like where, I mean, under them with the rally, and the when we basically use immediately. Doesn't always have the biggest impact, but obviously it's helpful for all of us to like so we can make better decisions in the fight. Yeah, and then obviously comes the staging. So now we can hear the staging part.
Like, I think the bottom.
Yeah, like sorry, we hear the Baptiste saying he's on payload, Risa saying she's on the stairs. Like, why is it important, by the way? Why is it helpful for us that the Baptiste says he's on payload? Can we not just see it?
It's a useful reminder in case not everyone is like paying perfect attention.
I mean, then it's their mistake, right?
Yeah.
Just clarifying, like maybe also like letting the team know, like, okay, well, if I need resources from this player, I know where to find them.
Yeah, but I mean, he can just look at them, right?
Maybe also just letting them know that he's on cart to push it. They can play aggressive.
Seems like the role like no one else is panicking. Like, hey, do I need to push cart here? Can I actually push up?
Yeah, okay, but I mean, at the end of the day, we can just look at the payload, right, and see what he's doing, or we can even look at here and see like somebody's pushing already.
I'm not sure then.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, what you already said is also partially right, completely right. I just obviously want to be a little bit more put you on the edge here. But the main point why this is imagine you're the Ash player right now. The only thing you want to look at is at this corner and get ready to headshot. And you don't know when they're coming from, when they're coming out there. So you don't really want to spend any time of obviously taking a look anywhere else than this corner because you want to deal damage. You want to get a headshot. So basically, and obviously completely correct. Like if it makes difference for our Ash if he knows Baptiste is here or the Baptiste is here, because then maybe she can immediately make a coach gets healing, or she has to maybe, I don't know, AD, and then she gets makes coacher and then she gets healing. So it's definitely a difference. And the main reason basically is why we make this calls is so we can, without losing any amount of attention, kind of make better decisions and later on in the fight. For example, imagine Ash would be here, right? Our Orisa says, hey, I'm playing on stairs. Then without even losing the line of sight or the crosshair here, the Ash could, in theory, just drop down because she knows the Orisa is here and will most likely have a shield. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is kind of the main reason why we want to talk about this kind of staging stuff. Obviously, if we need somebody for certain things, then it's even more important. And yeah, and then obviously the scouting, which was super quickly, like just left, and then they execute this whole thing. Okay. Is this something you guys feel comfortable of doing in the next scrim?
Yeah, I think
yes,
pretty good. This, yeah. I think.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, great. Then obviously we rushed over some things. Oh, like one thing I also forgot before we do this because I think it's really important to just get it up again on the screen. Right, we went over this whole process and so on. Old plan, staging, and I just ignored the rest. One thing I forgot to say is in Overwatch we have in average 15 seconds time between each fight. And there is kind of a little bit of a rule of like a 5 seconds rule that you want to use like 5 seconds for ult tracking, 5 seconds for planning, 5 seconds for like the staging. I don't care at all if you use 5 seconds or not. The only thing you like what the rules kind of want to tell you, or like what you should remember out of this, is that it's way more important that we get all 3 things done, or best case 4 with the scouting, than having like a perfect ult tracking or a perfect
Mhm.
plan. Because imagine if we have like a perfect ult tracking, obviously we have no plan in staging, we will just lose. Imagine we have a perfect plan, even a 15, if we need 15 seconds to talk about a plan, then maybe the plan is also too complicated and will not work. And even if we don't really know where we're going at, right? Like, do we go left side? Do we go right side? At this point, they already like are in our backline. So generally
Mhm.
speaking, it's always the best case to make sure that we take all 3 things in consideration before we start a fight. Then then basically making something like perfect or something like this.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. I think we have this. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then let's just jump over maybe some more fights here. We already watched this one, so I would just kind of get over this quickly.
Right.
We are basically right. Completely agree with you guys. Was the main problem that I also see that we could improve on is being the same page, especially what the plan is. Like if you want to dive, then okay, right? And but for example, if we want to dive, then I know that our main goal is that we just basically look for LOS for our Zenyatta. For example, as a Sigma, I also don't really have to push up that much. I want to save my resources for the dive when data go in, because obviously I know, hey, we're going for a dive. So it's not so much about my Zen can spam here the whole time. It's about when we go in, then we need to be ready to go there, right? Like the moment we dive in, the moment my ball tracer go in and we go for a target, my Zen needs to be able to go out here or like go out here wherever and discard this target. And for this moment, he needs the shield. So the most important thing, or like he needs some assistance from us, right? And this is kind of the moment where we save our cooldowns for. We don't really care about breaking Sigma's shield because that's not our win condition. Our win condition is to get this guy or whatever target we have killed. So, and that's why it's always like, that's why it's so important that before we even do something, we think about as a team, like, hey, what's the plan? Which includes a little bit of what strategy are we going for, right? And it's not like that the whole fight, if this is the type of a fight, the timeline, it does not mean that we go for spam this fight, and okay, we go for spam until we win or die. No, it will most likely look like this anyways. That we go for spam, then maybe we go for dive, and that dive didn't really work out. Okay, let's play slow again, and another opportunity, we dive and we spam again, and we win. Kind of, I don't know, whatever, right? Like I don't really care about these moments here where you make the decision. I care about that we are at all points, at all 6 players are on the same stage or the same page, or like what do we do? Like, do we spamming right now because then I have a specific job to do as a ball tracer when we spam, or do we dive? Then I have a specific job to do as a ball tracer when we dive, and obviously everybody else too. And that's why it's so important that we immediately at least talk about the engagement of a fight, right? Like, which is the first kind of 5 seconds that we know, okay, like what do we do? And yeah, okay, perfect. Then just keep watching a little bit. Speed this up until our trader's back. Okay. Obviously now also some ultimates come in really soon, which ultimates just make everything quicker. But from the concept it's the same. And I don't like, obviously I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that I want to basically hammer it in your heads a little bit. The first, like without even discussing, right? I want to make sure that we understand what this is. Is this a quote unquote distraction? So we make this rotation? Is this a dive, aka we try to kill? Is this a like whatever it is? Like this needs to be clear, and we don't have to discuss it right now. Like for the
Mhm.
next time or whatever. But it needs to be clear that we understand what our purpose of this engagement is. Does it make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Because imagine this could be a dive. If this purpose is a dive, then I see immediately problems. Why are you not here? Why do we have
Mhm.
not the Discord on the right target? Why, like we are in a bad position, generally speaking, because we cannot really follow up. Like there are certain things which are not optimal for dive, and that's why I guess we don't really kill somebody. However, if we say this is just a spam to make a rotation, then why are we not rotating towards the brick to get this location wherever we want to? Why are we kind of now as a ball tracer following up? Why do we use so many blinks? Why don't we want to keep these resources for when we actually go in or when it's actually necessary? Right? Because our goal, obviously, to make distraction here for our backline already achieved. And I don't really like. I'm sure there's pros and cons for both. Like I don't want to talk right now about what is better. I just want to make sure that when you do this kind of things, that all 6 players are on the same page of what we want to accomplish here.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, we have just 3 minutes. I mean, obviously we can do a little bit longer, but I mean, we have not so much more time. So just asking real quick out of your memory, is there any fight or any situation that you really, really wanted to go over? We haven't really covered so much so far now. Not that we missed something that you say, oh yeah, I really wanted to go over this.
Nothing for me at least.
Nothing off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
I don't know if Tori or Menway.
No, I don't have a fight off the top of my head.
Okay.
Maybe we
That's
could,
fine.
maybe we could just
Yeah.
find a fight just to, like, maybe we could just keep going through this fight and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Caesar,
I think
beginning of our
I think a
time.
lot of the fights had the same problems, so I mean, for me it doesn't matter which fight.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mhm.
Then we just finish keep pointing here and like pointing out the things we already saw with just different examples, basically. So, yeah. Obviously, in the mid fights, right, there's a little bit more chaotic. Like no team will have always the like perfect solution to everything, and as long as we also have the same prioritization, in my opinion, it's okay, right? Like, right, for example, here our Zen died, but I think this is okay. If we say like, hey, we just have maybe generally speaking, just feel like, and this is more like, it's not so much of a of like knowledge or that we have like this perfect idea over the time because we have this point of view. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Even an Overwatch League player does not have all information when he is in this point of view. We need to make guesses here. We need to make like whatever feels best. And because our ball tracer is still alive, I think it feels best for us to try to kill them quicker than they kill us. Like generally speaking, right? And this is not based on any facts. This is not based on the perfect like we cannot pause the game and count on the cooldowns that we have and count the cooldowns we have. It's more like of a feeling that we have right now. And
Mhm.
again, as I said, like especially why our Overwatch League or like good teams so important is because they make sure that especially also in these chaotic moments, even they don't always choose the best situation, they will do the same thing. Like if you watch any, especially, I mean, okay, if you watch any like Overwatch League teams in the mid fights, especially, you will see that they will still make sure if they go out, they all go out. If they go in, they all go in, right? So that's what I mean. And I think here, generally speaking, the choice of, I mean, going aggressive makes sense, right? And sometimes it doesn't make sense, but as long as we do it together, I'm fine with it. Or you should, I think, in my opinion, at least, it's a okay thing to do, basically. Oh yeah. Let's just speed this up here a little bit. Let's say I don't know. Okay, they're actually recontesting. Let's talk about this real quick. Right, obviously now the fight is over, so now starts the communication cycle of hey, ult tracking, fight planning, and so on. And then for like, I don't want to ask now, we have more time, but immediately I would think about okay, there's something just not coherent. I'm not saying it's wrong, or just like I see that we are not on the same page, so most likely it's not as the best. For example, we flexing right now in the backline without having like much follow up. So if you tell me this was just a flux to just stall them, I'm completely okay, right? But I would generally speaking say, hey, either we like what do we do right now? We can either play really slow, then I guess okay, we just try to get great angles, right? Taking angles for the obviously for the point, which is an important thing. So maybe taking this angle, taking maybe the high ground again, whatever. So this could be our main goal, and obviously we try to eliminate the threats for this. So in this case, I guess sure we can flux them so our Ash can get high ground again. Then this would be the spam option, right? As you mentioned, like I talked about slowing, playing for angles, securing the angles. This would be the idea of in this case. Or we just say, hey, we want to use the signal flux, or like, I mean, obviously we used it earlier. We just want to say, hey, we want to kill somebody quickly, then we play dive, and dive is always the same: scouting, staging, and obviously the dive, the killing. So we need to first scout a target, who we want to attack. Do we want to kill the tracer? Do we want to kill the ball? Like, everybody is a dive target. Obviously, tracer and balls are way harder to dive, but in this option here, in this moment, I mean, they're in a really good position for us, especially if we flux them, or we dive them. And again, I don't want to find here the solution. I just want to make sure that the idea kind of obviously gets put into your head that whatever we choose, basically, it's the easiest or like best if we just do it together.
Right.
Yeah. And we see obviously that especially Ivy, right? Like afterwards, even try to follow up on this, but yeah, like I think there was clearly we're clearly not kind of like following up on this. So I would obviously then flux them, and then maybe make sure that I'm coming back down here as a flux and be ready to be more defensive. Or we all call to make this rotation or go aggressive here. And obviously, I expect our team to be more focused in this direction. Nice. Maybe just go to one more fight. And we can end it here. Let's go to the end, so have a clean fight. Yeah. Alright, it's the same thing here. Starts with the ult tracking, starts then with fight planning. We have a lot of different options. Don't think there's any, like, I think in Overwatch there will never be this only this one option. Some teams like to play aggressive or like more divey. Some teams like to play more defensive. It's completely up to like your preference, and there are different ways to go for it. As long as we do it kind of obviously one thing together. So let's see what you choose. You get a nice pick. And to take space. I like on the high ground. Okay. I mean, not much to say on a strategy, right? We just basically. I mean, important thing is here, like that this is way more important than this actually, because at the end of the day, it only happens like only if we push payloads, we get the kills, right? So I would make sure, like, because we cannot really from this position we cannot support the payload. So I would say it's a little bit of a priority difference. But from the strategy, like, I mean, there's not much to say. We just got 2 picks and we just like, right? We just, I mean, keep pushing them.
It's hard to lose a fight where you're up 2.
Yeah. I'm trying to look for the same example, basically, or like for a similar example from the things where like this could be maybe a problem. Right, so obviously now new fight. You also get again kills. But same thing here, right? Like a moment, even if we have some kills here, we need to make sure, okay, like how do we approach this now? Do we want to dive them here? Do we want to like get space and so on, like, or like get play slow and get angles? Because then depending, but it's especially important also for our Ashe. Like if I know as an Ashe, like, hey, I get the resources to obviously stay on this different angle, which is obviously super important. Like imagine she stays here, the Ascent stays here, like this. I mean, there's no way they can stay here for long. So if this is possible, then obviously I know as an Ashe, like I can demand also some resources to help me to go something else. And I need to also say this because depending on this, my ball tracer makes space for me, right? If I Ashe, I don't know, wants to go this way, and we scouted the ball tracer is somewhere here, I mean, then I don't expect my ball tracer to go all the way here to just attack the ball tracer. No, I mean, then they just do whatever, because the Ashe basically is free, right? As long as this is kind of free, then the Ashe doesn't need help, so we don't need to give her help. Right? It's just like it's in my opinion, or in at least my head, and maybe people think differently about this, but it's just a priority list. And if our highest priority is to keep the Ashe alive, if Ashe is alive, then I can also dive in as a ball, right? Or like as a tracer, if my Ashe is fine, right? The problem, like, it gets only problematic if my Ashe is not safe and I still dive in. Then it's an active problem, because then you do not the right thing that we want to do in this strategy with the strategy. So yeah. Right, and the same thing here. Like what is this whole kind of process? Like apparently we try to get to a high ground. Apparently to maybe like I would say to go for a dive, because we are kind of we're not splitting. So immediately in my at least in my head, it calls for dives because we make sure that ball tracer can dive. And if the ball tracer can dive, nobody will peel for my Ashe. That's why we all go together. But if we dive, then obviously the timing is not good because we're not even there. And even if this would be hitting, like the send is not there, the tracer is not there, like, right? There's also the same thing, right? If we call for dive here, that we say, hey, we want to go aggressive, I don't give a fuck about this tracer. Like, this tracer is completely irrelevant for my tracer. She can go all the way here. My brick is ready for this, right? That's my brick's job. As a tracer, I will try to get somewhere here. Yeah, and we try to do kind of both things at the same time. So basically that means that the dive will not work, but also means that the Ashe doesn't get her space because we don't really made space for her, right? So both things failed. The dive failed right now, and our spam failed. And yeah, that's obviously a problem. And then even though we had like one player up, I think we went into fight like 5 or 6. We at least are in a disadvantage. And now we just obviously use ultimates to try to get it back, but apparently it is also not working. So yeah. Okay, perfect. Then any last questions for the session today?
Nope.
No, I think you helped point out a lot of mistakes.
Great, perfect. And let's make a quick summary, right, of what we talked about. I think the biggest thing, and obviously then maybe the next thing, in my opinion, also for the next scrim should be the comms, because this doesn't matter which comp you play, communication is also important. Basically what is the things we said, right? The communication structure outside the fight, something to practice, I think maybe the next 1 or 2 scrims. The second thing we talked about specifically for this comp is basically like the plan in a sense of, do we spam or do we dive? And I'm not only talking about before the fight starts, best case also like, right, when do we switch? Like that, I don't care when, I just care that we are all 6 on the same page. Because this when gets better the more we play it. The more experience we get, the more we know this is a good place to switch to a strategy, or this is not. And obviously it depends on ultimates and so on. And the third thing, as a priority, could be that we kind of, for example, and this is just a placeholder here, the rotations, but that we basically make different actions that we see them more together. Obviously, I just had a short time with you, so I don't know if this is a huge problem. I just saw it, like, it's obviously wrong written. I saw it as, in my opinion, that important if this is actually a problem. But if we think about, okay, like rotations or other actions, they need to be made as a team. I don't want to see 4 players rotating and my ball tracer just basically chilling, and then our 4 players get dove and we think like, oh, we could never dive them. Yeah, that we help them first to make the rotation, and even if this means that we have to maybe wait 1 or 2 more seconds for the actual dive to happen, I mean, that's the trade-off we have to do, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay, I can
Great.
also screenshot this for you, so you can just post in your channel. And yeah, then then we're done. No more questions. I would say we finish it here, and you can.
Yeah, no, I don't have
Question?
questions. I just thank you for the VOD.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was nice, and yeah, obviously we maybe see us then another time at some point.
All right.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Alright,
Good
see
night.
you.
Appreciate it.
Where should I send a screenshot of which channel? I would post?
Just send it to me and I'll post it in the team
Okay.
chat.
Yeah. Okay, I do this. Okay, then. See you guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See ya.
Thank you, Lord.
All right. I think just looking from that VOD and overall other VODs, I think next scrim, our biggest thing is like we gotta learn to do things as 6. Like I feel like that's our biggest issue.
Yeah. I think at the very base level, like to turn on Chin's slightly more actionable thing, we just like one, fight plan more depth, or just come more in general, but like fight plan more depth and fight plan a bit more consistently. And then we can work on the other stuff after that.
I feel like our fight plans are enough. I mean, they could be more
so?
in depth. I think they, well, at times they can be. I think there are times where we get ahead of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
To someone,
Yeah,
someone
I think they're good when they're good sometimes, but I feel like we don't consistently we aren't consistent about them, or at least not to the point we need to be. But I mean, that is just my personal opinion. Other people can have different reads.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, no, I agree with you, actually. Yeah, I mean, overall, just I think we kind of hit it on the head with the fight plans and then just working as 6. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Who do we like? Thor was talking about like a designated like final save fight planner. Do we want that to be you or Monway?
I mean, like he was saying, it doesn't have to. That person doesn't have to be the person who actually makes the plan, and I'm okay with bringing up like the topic because I already kind of do that.
All right, that works.
On a side note, do we have a scrim today?
Do we?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
It's on the schedule. I just don't have one yet.
No worries. I just.
Christ.
Soy's eating din din.
I'm eating fruit.
Oh, apparently Thor recorded it himself.
Oh.
All I want is fruit. I don't know
I-
what my problem is.